Today let's talk about the Old Testament. We all know the greatest bits. David and Goliath, Daniel and the lion's den, Noah and the ark. But what about the rest of it? Stick with me while I explain why this ancient collection of texts is so much more than a history book. It's actually an essential foundation for vibrant faith today. First, to get a little perspective, I want to show you a number 77%. That's right, over 3/4 of the entire Christian Bible is the Old Testament. But for so many of us, it's the part we know the least about, yet it makes up the vast majority of the book. So just why is this true for most Christians? I would describe our relationship with the Old Testament as a bit of a standoffish reverence. I mean, we know it's important, we respect it for sure, but we kind of keep it at arm's length. Maybe it's the ancient-sounding words or just the strangeness of the cultures. We tend to go to the more familiar and newer New Testament. So the real question is, what are we missing out on? Well, we're about to find out. There are 4 huge insights that are hiding right in plain sight. Number 1, it shows us about God's character. 2, it sets the stage and climax for the New Testament. 3, it has a role as a moral compass. And 4, its legendary stories are packed with incredible wisdom for us today. Alright, first up, discovering God's character. If you really want to know who God is, the Old Testament is literally where He introduces Himself in His own words. And here's the amazing part. We don't have to guess or try to read between the lines. The text itself gives us this direct look into that perfect balance between His justice and His mercy. It's less like biography about God, more like an autobiography from God. Just listen to this. In Exodus, right after the whole nation's disobedience in making and worshiping the golden calf, God reveals His core nature to Moses. He says He is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Wow, that isn't just a list of adjectives, it's a profound declaration of identity. So here's why this really matters for us. Reading these passages gives us a much richer, more complete picture of God. It takes us from a simple, one-dimensional sketch to a full-color, complex and beautiful portrait of His true nature. Okay, to our second point. The Old Testament is the context for the climax of the whole Bible. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't start watching a movie 77% of the way through and expect to understand the ending. Well, it's the same idea here. The Old Testament gives us all that critical history and culture. Jesus didn't just appear out of the blue. He was constantly pointing back to the Scriptures to explain who He was and what His mission was. You could say the prophecies were kind of like His resume. Hundreds of years before Jesus, the prophet Isaiah describes His mission to bring good news to the poor. Then fast forward to the right, Jesus walks into a synagogue, unrolls that exact same scroll, reads it out loud and says, "Yep, that's about me." It's a total mic drop moment. But it only really lands if you know the backstory. And that's why this matters so much. When you understand the promises and the prophecies, the whole setup of the Old Testament, the arrival of Jesus in the New Testament becomes infinitely more powerful. Point number 3 is all about the Old Testament as ancient moral compass. Yes, some of its laws can seem a little strange to us today for sure, but it also gives us the timeless ethical foundation that honestly our modern society is built on. And the most famous example of this course is the 10 Commandments. You find them in Exodus. And these rules have served as a cornerstone of moral behavior for thousands of years, shaping laws and entire cultures all over the world. We all know them, right? No other gods, don't murder, don't steal, and the 7 other commands. They seem so basic, but their impact is just massive. Let's just zoom in on one of them to see what I mean. You shall not steal. It's just 4 simple words, but this command is absolutely fundamental. It's all about respecting the property, the work, and the dignity of other people. And that idea, it's the bedrock of any stable, trusting community. So why is this still relevant? Well, it's because these aren't just dusty old religious rules. They're basically the source code for a functioning society. The whole idea is that we all do better when we respect each other equally. It starts right here. And that brings us to our final point, number 4. Lessons from legendary stories. Because beyond the laws and the history, the Old Testament is just filled with these incredible, real, human stories that have so much wisdom for our times. And that is the core power of these stories. They offer real, timeless wisdom for us today. They show us that we aren't the first people to struggle with doubt or grief or loss. We are offered a kind of roadmap for finding hope even in our darkest moments. So after considering all this, maybe we can move past that standoffish reverence and start to see the Old Testament for what it really is. It's an invitation. An invitation to build a much deeper, richer, and more solid understanding of your faith. When you dive in, you get to discover God's true character for yourself. You understand the context for the New Testament. You grasp the moral foundation of our world. And you learn from timeless stories that speak right into your own life. This is not about trying to tackle all 77% at once. It's just about starting somewhere. Maybe it's reading a proverb a day, or exploring the incredible story of Joseph, or maybe learning about the life of Moses or David. The only question left is, what part of this amazing foundation are you ready to explore first?